Janitor's log. Stardate 20213.8. It's been a rough few days. Tex-Mex night in the mess deck means Commander Benoit's bathroom needs constant attention. In the few hours I've had to enjoy myself around porcelain duty, I've played some old films on the view screen. One, a rose-colored examination of our flaws and strengths, made me sad, but optimistic of the potential I wield. Perhaps I'll make head floor scrubber yet. The other film, well, perplexed me beyond understanding and highlighted how easily civilization can slip past saving. Nothing we've ever had to deal with, thankfully. All hail Emperor Elon. We watched Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and Star Wars II, Attack of the Clones.
Ah, the French champagne.
Can you tell me which members of the Reservoir Dogs you two are currently dressed as?
I'm Mr. Pink.
Sis Blue.
So Miranda hasn't seen Reservoir Dogs.
Secret Nazis.
Yeah.
Secret Nazis.
Classic Spielberg.
Classic Spielberg.
He needs to kill 94 different 65-year-old men over 2.5 years because those men's children are all identical clones of Adolf Hitler.
There's like a bunch of other shit that happens in Driven.
Is there?
Shake it! Shake it!
The schlocky movie from this week may be the schlockiest film we've ever seen on this podcast.
The Citizen Kane of the week is... Yay.
Yay.
Well, I'll just say right away this week, welcome to Citizen Kane Versus, where we compare a movie that is considered to be more of a classic against a movie that is more on the schlocky side, and we ask ourselves, honestly, truly honestly, which is better? My name is Jack Rennie, and I'm joined by my two friends, a one.
Sean Jacklin.
And the other.
Daniel Benoit.
Daniel Benoit. And we're joined today by a very special guest, dear friend of the pod and of all of us, Mr. Adam Reed. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Yo, thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for adhering to the yo rule we established before recording. Thank you. Yeah, and Adam pitched these movies. We're so happy to get back into some sci-fi this week with The Wrath of Khan, which I've never seen, but heard so much about. It's been referenced so much. It's such a broadly referenced movie, I would say. In particular, just someone yelling Khan.
Yep. And it echoing through space.
Yeah, echoing through space. And then Attack of the Clones, which I'm unfortunately familiar with.
Yep.
What was the last sci-fi movies we did on this thing? Have we done sci-fi at all?
Aliens and Predators.
Yeah. Aliens, Predators.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course.
I think
would that be sci-fi though?
Yeah.
Oh,
but they're
absolutely.
Well, Aliens is, but Predators is kind of more like a
aliens
action
that hunt
flick.
people. It's sci-fi.
Yeah, if it has an alien in it, I would argue that it's sci-fi. But I know what you mean. They're kind of like blockbuster action sci-fi. They're not like these movies have like kind of pure sci-fi about them. There's like their whole other worlds. Like they're not like it's on Earth and there's an alien here. It's like we're in space.
Yeah.
I feel like there are whole droves of people that would be thoroughly offended by you calling Star Wars Attack of the Clones pure sci-fi.
And yet, you know what? I'd defend the statement.
Yeah. Right now, my dad is screaming at the YouTube screen.
We
And your mom is like, they're too rambly. I'm out. Yeah.
So for anyone not familiar with these movies, Dan, do you have a couple summarinos you feel like you could deliver for us?
Oh, do I ever?
Let's hit us with them.
In the red corner, representing the classics, an old but vigorous space admiral who is thrust back into the captain's chair after an old, genetically enhanced rival escapes exile and comes at him hard. Coming in at 113 minutes, starring William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban, Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan.
Khan! Everyone give it Khan. There it is.
And in the blue corner, representing the schlock, it's the greatest love story ever told, where a Jedi apprentice whines and complains his way into the heart of a beautiful young senator, proving love truly can conquer all if you consistently display signs of mental and emotional instability. Also, some other stuff happens with clones and lightsabers and corrupt politicians, coming in at a punishing 142 minutes, starring too many people to name, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones.
Clones. Yeah, that's it. Found it.
Thank you again, Adam. These are both thoroughly enjoyable to watch. Even Attack of the Clones.
That's a lie.
No, it has. I think it achieves a bit of that schlockiness. Where as you describe the romance of this movie and how mockable it is, there is something that is truly enjoyable about it. I have to, in my opinion.
I'm in that ballpark.
Yeah.
I watched this movie in the middle of the day, and it almost forced me into a nap.
Yeah, but most movies force you into a nap.
I
Not
feel like
true.
midday is
That's-
nap time.
No, I never nap.
Adam, what was the thought process that brought you to these two films?
That's good. I had a lot of other potential options. And I knew you guys had done a bit of sci-fi, but not too much. And I kind of thought, well, these two, like that age question, Star Trek or Star Wars or both. And I knew Star Trek at its schlockiest probably could not compete with Star Wars at its most classic. So I thought, well, if we flip that around, and then I sort of, they're both episode 2 or number 2.
They're both number
I
twos.
thought it was a fun. Yeah, that's right. I thought it was a fun number one. A good connection that way.
Yeah, and as I said, I was very happy to finally see Khan.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I'm a Trekkie. It was on sometimes when I was growing up. I had I think older brothers and stuff that liked watching those kind of shows, but I wasn't quite. I was really young when they were watching it, so I saw some of Jean-Luc Picard, and I saw. Is that one Deep Space Nine? No, the other one's Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine, right?
I'm just trying to remember the name of the captain on the space station for Deep Space Nine.
Oh, I should know that.
Kidding me.
But the point is, I saw some of that, but I've never really seen the old, the classic Star Trek show. I haven't seen, I'm not a Trekkie by any sense of the word, I would say.
Wait, so this was your first exposure to the original Star Trek cast?
Ooh.
But also it feels like no, but kind of yes. Because it's so referenced. I've seen so many, they've appeared in so many animated shows. They've been referenced in so many things. I've seen clips of it in so many things. But yeah,
but you haven't
also
sat and watched an episode of the original.
No, definitely not.
Because I kind of felt like that, to me, that's a bit of a shame, because I kind of felt like this cast and this iteration of Star Trek in feature film world didn't really do the original format justice.
But it never could. It never could. That format is so entrenched in television, in the 44-minute well-crafted drama that you could never do that in the big screen.
I think that was the trouble with when I was trying to choose them. I think that Star Trek really is at its kind of highest point on television, and none of the feature films, except for maybe Wrath of Khan, have really kind of. A lot of them just feel like long Star Trek episodes that don't quite land. And the reboot, the soft reboot with the newer movies, I just didn't really go for them much myself.
You mean Star Wars almost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not at all
Star Wars.
No, it's a far cry from Star Trek 4, the one with the whales.
That one's not bad, actually.
That one's probably my favorite of the films, but it's just such an obtuse they have to bring whales back to Earth.
Well, there's lots of whale references in Wrath of Khan, which I'm sure you guys may have. Moby Dick, Captain Ahab.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
yeah.
yes, that's right.
Lots of literature. Well, should we dive into these bad boys, these bad boys?
Let's dive into these bad boys. Let's get into these boys real quick. So Starting with our first. Don't laugh into your coffee, Dan. Starting
Sorry.
with,
Let's get into these bad boys real quick.
Yeah, if they could just open up for us.
I'm just saying what we're all thinking.
God.
So, starting with our first category, story good. So, Adam, again, as the person who brought these movies to us, and I imagine you have maybe a bit more of a familiarity with these movies and with the whole with both catalogs of work. How do you feel about the stories of these two movies?
Well, it's really I for all the categories today, I'm going to be really torn, except for a couple. Well, except for acting. But
For Attack of the Clones, yeah,
real stinker. But yeah, I think Wrath of Khan, the original Star Trek episode, and despite the outfit I'm wearing, I wouldn't really consider myself a Trekkie. It was just there was a Halloween many years past where my now wife and I both did the Trek getup. But Wrath of Khan, the original episode Space Seed, is just like a really, really great episode. And I guess the director decided to revisit this villain. And I find there's a lot of things, well, it kind of does follow like a lot of formulaic kind of tropey sci-fi Star Trek stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like the old captain coming back to the chair, the young cadets get thrown into this emergency mission. You know, the vengeance of this villain. Like, I feel like it leans into it in a way where it really works. At least I think it does. And
so, can you clarify something for me then, as someone again, who doesn't know this? So, is this movie then? So, this is a continuation off of an episode that was done, and it did the same. Did Ricardo so and so? I'm sorry, what is it?
Ricardo Montalban.
Ricardo Montalban. Did he play Khan in the episode as well and kind of reprise his role, or he
did. So I think it was
interesting.
about 15 years earlier.
Wow.
67 was the episode. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, and
cool.
He did a really good job, like in terms of being physically intimidating and having like that simmering menace and.
Even his giant glowing bare chest.
More so in Space Seed, I think. But.
His cleavage? Is that his intimidating male cleavage?
That he enforced on all of his acolytes, yeah.
I was like, where did they find this ripped old dude with bangs?
He was an actor.
This villain.
He was one of those actors in the like 60s and 50s and 60s that like did the rounds of all the TV shows as the actors did in those days. You'd do this show and do a guest spot on that show, and he was just one of those guys that like, because he was vaguely ethnic looking, that he could fit the gap of like, oh, we need an Indian man to play Khan, so let's cast this guy who is not Indian in any way, but like looks ethnic, right?
Yeah. There are parts in this movie where he has an obvious Latin accent, which I loved. But I didn't realize that
you left me stranded for a long time on that planet.
But that actually explains a lot, because I spent a lot of this movie wondering why they weren't explaining the origin of Khan more. But I guess it's just operating on the assumption that people watching this movie are fans of the original and would have seen the original episode with him in it, right?
Which is a good similarity to Attack of the Clones. I was having a discussion with Aaron about it, and the prequel movies are made with the assumption you have seen the original movies, because if you haven't, why do you give a shit about Anakin Skywalker and his story at all, especially in such a like travesty the way they've presented it? Why do you give a shit? So you have to be invested in the Darth Vader story in order to give a shit about the prequels. So in just as in Star Trek, you have to be like, oh, the original series was I loved it so much. Khan, no shit, amazing. Yeah.
I think the story of Attack of the Clones, kind of looping back to Jack's question, I feel like the story is really well, like it's an interesting story, and like this galactic scale and like the political machinations of everything that's happening. Like I do think that I just think it was very poorly executed. It still is like this. It is, this powerful, and I don't know. I think if you are familiar with the original trilogy, being in the know that Palpatine is, this evil fascist Sith Lord, and seeing all those pieces sliding into place is cool. If there were some other things that got fixed.
Yeah. And I think, sorry, go ahead, Sean, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned the scale, and this is, I hate this movie, but but watching it again today with an actual clinical eye for it, I have to say I am impressed by what George Lucas was trying to do here. I think it is an incredible attempt at what he was doing. He just misses. Yeah,
it's one of those things. It's so clear, and this has been discussed by many people on many podcasts, I'm sure. But in a nutshell, just how much it was how negative it was for the movie that he had become kind of all-powerful George Lucas, and kind of that he didn't have anyone really challenging him, it seems, and that as a result he didn't have the team he had and the people he had kind of crafting his truly brilliant vision. I think that's something you can't take away from Lucas in any of his works, is that the dude's got crazy vision, right? Yeah. But he just needs actual filmmakers to help him make a good movie so he can sell his toys, right? So I know what you mean, Sean. You know what I mean? There's something to
a space opera involving a shadowy figure manipulating two sides of a civil conflict in order to force a democracy to give that person emergency dictatorial powers is thrilling if it wasn't in the Star Wars.
Yeah. or it just wasn't on constant terrible green screens restricting nothing was directed. It was just placed.
Yeah,
it was just this laboratory of images.
Well, Jack, you said I watched a few of the special features and interviews just to kind of have some ammo for the podcast. And it's I will arrive prepared and sort of look like I know what I'm talking about. But okay, Lucas, he had a buddy working in editing or special effects, one of the people on the movie, and he mentioned, working with George, I've never worked with another director like him. It's unlike any director I've ever worked with before. It's he takes I wrote down the exact quote somewhere, but
you can tell it's already kind of not a good thing.
He takes pieces and almost like a painting, adding colors here and adding colors there. And they went through the whole process where they would actually just assemble the movie out of all these little snippets that they would tweak and perfect and edit and add things to, and then just put the puzzle together and build a movie. So what you said, Jack, that feeling of it kind of all being just assembled, that was their creative process.
It was an assembly line. He is the John Ford to the movie making business. He stacks them up and pushes them out.
Yeah. And I think this sort of came up on our pre-show rabble. And I think it's kind of worth getting into a little bit as we talk about story, which is that I'm going to say right now, if these prequels were 10% better, and in a way, even as they are, even though they are not story based enough that they should be, I kind of am in that group of people that sort of prefers them to the newer Star Wars movies.
100%. I finished Attack of the Clones and was like, I will easily watch this film before I ever watch 8 or 9 again in my life.
Sorry, even Force Awakens, man. I know it's good, but it's good because it is A New Hope.
Yeah, at least Force Awakens gives me a warm, nostalgic feeling, whereas 8 and 9 give me the rages.
I don't understand that. I mean, maybe I'm not a big enough Star Wars fan to understand why they're so bad, because to me the newer ones are light.
Can you tell me what happens in either of episode 8 or 9?
No, I can tell you that there is a pretty sweet boardroom battle scene. Throne room, actually, and that's pretty much all I remember.
Your Honor, I rest my case.
I literally just finished Attack of the Clones and couldn't tell you what happened in that one either.
Okay.
So
I think that like
The jury's
problems
still out.
are similar between the two, right? Like I think visually, both the prequels, in some ways, and the new movies visually are pretty incredible. Like that boardroom fight scene you mentioned with like the red robed like kind of emperor guards and stuff. That scene is dope. Like that action and like the shot, like it's a really visually fun action scene. And there's like even the speeder chase, like despite the CGI and the blue screen and stuff, like looking at some of the shots they came up with really new technology in the prequel stuff, like there's some pretty exciting action. But definitely, I think the biggest problem with the new ones, like the prequels had story issues and acting issues and stuff, but it was something original. Whereas the new ones had, the acting was fine, the visuals were good, they looked pretty, but it was just so clearly, we're giving the fans what they want. It really rubbed me the wrong way. I just couldn't,
Now, story-wise,
I'll take a failed new endeavor over an attempt to manipulate me for my money any day. Is kind of what I'm trying to say.
The
I'm
Disney
not saying
Corporation.
either one is good. Yeah, exactly. It's just like it just stinks of Disney and that whole motive to like, aren't you happy or sad or both right now? Maybe give us money. Like
No. I had watching Wrath of Khan, taking story notes. I sat there just kind of like, I don't know if it's deserved awe. I don't know if this movie actually accomplishes this to the level that I'm going to give it credit for. But after watching some of the films we've watched for the podcast this season, watching a film where every character has like moral dilemma that is going on, and every character is acting on that dilemma, and in each scene there is a conflict that questions that dilemma, and all along every line is going towards their actions and forwarding the progress of the film. I felt like I died and gone to heaven compared to some of the films we've watched.
I don't know if I'd agree to such an extreme extent, but I definitely found that I was far more engaged with this film than I have been with many of the ones we've watched this season, and I was surprised because I'm like a casual fan of the original Star Trek, but only for its camp factor. Like I never went into an episode expecting to be riveted by a story. It was just always a fun way to spend 45 minutes.
Right.
And this movie doesn't really have that. A lot of the camp is gone, which I missed, but it's replaced by actually really intriguing story, which moves quite slow at times, which normally would take me right out of it, but somehow they managed to keep this thing kind of like simmering below the surface. So it's always palpable and interesting. So I would agree, Sean.
I think
go ahead, Sean.
I think the camp factor is largely lumped onto Khan and his followers, and they're like hippy dippy commune style.
They're
Yes,
like Mad
yes.
Max meets the
ABBA.
surfers meets ABBA. Yeah, this group of young, really healthy looking people stranded on a desert planet with nice blonde locks and Aryan looks, and
Well,
it's a lot.
they're all genetically modified. Was that the idea? So they've been like built in
Oh.
labs.
They're superhumans. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And
Interesting.
they're 200 years old because the timeline they kept saying 200 years, but then they
yeah.
did it but then the thing with Kirk happened 15 years ago. I was confused as to
They were in a
Exactly.
cryosleep for like 200 years, weren't they?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
Kirk found them. It's all like having to do with them. The 200 years is before they met Kirk in the first place, if I understand correctly.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, it's the eugenics wars of the 1990s. I mean, everyone remembers the eugenics wars of the 1990s.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
That clears it up for me. Thank you, Adam.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, in Spacey, they like go into it a bit more, but like Khan was basically this like tyrant war leader, like, and kind of ruled over a good portion of the earth in like this war that came out of like genetic cloning or modification, and
Yeah.
so and like led this army of super soldiers and kind of like almost like took over Earth as this, and then I guess whatever governments at the time kind of stopped him and put him down. And I guess he just kind of got chucked into space, or they were taking him somewhere on this ship in cryosleep, and then the ship crashed, which Kirk and his crew found in the original series.
Right.
A couple hundred years later.
Right. Yeah. I want to jump back though and say, in terms of the pacing of this movie, like I agree, Sean, the story does hold you, but the pacing is super slow.
Yeah.
And like, there was enough dead air that Miranda would sometimes just be like, no one's saying anything. Like, there's, what's happening?
You mean the 2-minute sequence where they're pulling out of the dock?
Yeah, just all this stuff. But at the same time, she was also like, I love this movie. You know, it's like, it somehow seems slower than Attack of the Clones, but the pacing is better. Somehow Attack of the Clones manages to be slower with all of this like flashiness.
I think that goes towards the point I was making, is that it is written really, really well. And even though some of the acting flubs the writing, and some of the effects that they have flub what is trying to be done, there are stakes at every single moment of every single character's journey in this.
Yeah.
You're talking about Star Trek, not Attack of the Clones, right?
Yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah, I mean, the pacing I found was a real issue for me in the first 15 minutes or so. Like, pretty much right up until they find Khan.
Yeah.
And then, even though the pacing continues to kind of be a little slow, it wasn't an issue anymore because things are far more fascinating. But I agree. In the first, because there was a lack of dialogue and soundscape for some reason. Like, there was no music scoring anything for a long time. So, and the pauses between people's lines was like painfully long. So that really bothered me, but then once the story got going, I was fine.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like I think they did a few things where there were enough surprise moments or intense things that kind of drew you back in. When they find Khan, and there's the whole scene where he interrogates Chekhov and the other captain, and the disgusting ear creatures and. Like that, he all of a sudden is so intimidating and intense. It's like, oh, like damn, I'm invested now. And then things get slowed down a bit, and then they find like the dead bodies hanging up on the research lab.
Yeah, that was
and
spooky.
That's that big shock out of nowhere.
Yeah,
so I feel like they had
expecting
enough action, kind of dropping every now and again to kind of keep it moving.
I was not expecting Star Trek to give me the swinging body drop scare.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Seriously though, it was dark.
Yeah.
I agree. But the thing is, we're so inundated with like movies that are so self-conscious about themselves that they think that they have to be constantly, again, flashing shiny things or something in front of us to keep us in. There has to be somebody pretty or something exciting like all the time.
Well, yeah.
That to have movies or television or whatever, like, you know, entertainment where it doesn't do that. It's so refreshing. Like, I love it. I love a piece that is like confident enough to be like, yeah, they're just going to take their time, and there's going to be a climax, and then there's going to be a sad moment. Like, honestly, like 2 minutes after the climax, he's the, you know, Spock is finally going to die.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be a bit.
I shit talked the new Star Treks last week on the pod, and I dare the new series to take even one episode to talk about a person's midlife crisis and struggling with the realization that like perhaps their purpose is behind them. Like, take one episode. I dare you to do something like that. They'd never write that for the new series. Then this took a whole movie to pontificate Kirk's meaning in the world after the original series and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
I think all the subplots like are really are good. I mean, I'm not sure about the whole an ex-lover and I have a son now and that whole bit.
Oh, yeah.
My son.
The midlife crisis and all. Oh, when they hug at the end and he does this awkward shoulder pat. That was pretty clutch. But yeah, in the commentary, the director mentioned that he was tired of Star Trek, like all the characters seeming very like wooden or like kind of this like glorified, like we are space commanders. And he's like, oh, well, I didn't show Kirk going to the bathroom or anything, but I really wanted to try to bring it down to like a human allegory and like just kind of demystify the whole thing a little bit.
Right. Some glasses, maybe.
Yeah, which I thought was really effective.
For sure. Yeah, it's well crafted. I got to give it that. But I think we can't leave the story category without talking about, because story is a category that's like the overall shape of it, how it's being told, but also sometimes just straight up the script itself. And a definite minus to Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones, I should say.
You don't say.
I don't say that. Is, again, what they were trying to do is one thing, how it came out is another, and what the actual lines are some truly classic lines of schlock. Like Anakin's very first line to Padme when she says, "You've grown," and he says, "So have you. More beautiful, I mean."
Yep. And then like a few lines later, he talks about how she stayed the exact same because he dreams about her every night. I started keeping track of creep factors in this film.
So how did you watch any of it?
So like I can sense everything going on as she sleeps. I can tell everything going on. I've thought about her every day. I'd much rather dream about Padme. To Obi-Wan, this was a creepy line. You're the closest thing I have to a father. Getting oh, and then when he full on like throws a hissy fit because she wants to go stay at her country house. And you're like, he's in charge of security. Wow. And then the next scene, they kiss.
Yeah, after he compares her to not sand.
Yeah.
That classic, that infamous moment of "I hate sand. It's so coarse and dry.
Yeah.
Not
Rough
like you."
and irritating. It gets everywhere.
Yeah, it gets everywhere. You're everything smooth. And then they kiss. Like right after.
I got the impression that but before writing this movie, George Lucas had never spoken to a woman before.
Maybe
Correct.
still to this day.
Yeah.
It's pretty evident in Han Solo too. Han Solo's the romance of the OG trilogy, and he gets Carrie Fisher merely by like yelling at her a lot.
And then he kisses her.
And she says, "I love you."
But
and he says, "I know."
in his defense, Han Solo is cool. He's a cool guy.
Cool guy.
Anakin's cool. What are you guys talking about?
They really should make a young Jedi series where Anakin's the kid that just gets like beat up in the hallways and like stands next to the speaker during school dances to blow out his eardrums, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, have any of you seen the Clone Wars animated series? I know it's
some
a separate thing, but
which one? The Genndy Tartakovsky one or
the newer, the newer
one? I'm familiar with the Genndy Tartakovsky one.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar,
I haven't seen it yet. I've been meaning to watch it.
Do it.
Yeah, I've heard good things. Well, it's funny because with the story and this movie, it's like there's all these great ideas, but then it just like they don't get served up properly. And I love that they were able to make a 7-season animated series that explores these ideas like well and actually executes them decently. And it's just too bad that there were all those. Another bit of dialogue that I love.
Oh, we lost him. We lost you for a second.
Another bit of dialogue that you love?
Yeah, well, that I actually hate. I don't love it.
Okay.
Obi-Wan in the entire prequel trilogy, especially episode 2 and 3, when Anakin jumps out of the speeder and it's like, I hate it when he does that.
Yeah.
And it's just every single line he says is this dorky ass pun. And I don't know, Obi-Wan in episode 2 and 3 is just barf-tastic.
Ewan McGregor's not super great. Well, that's the acting. I want to pinpoint a moment in the world George Lucas is trying to build. He wants to show us that the Jedi safeguard this benevolent republic where everyone's voice is heard and it's like an ideal blah, 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 blah. So in this movie, we get a scene where two Jedi walk into a bar, insert punchline here, and within 30 seconds, one of the Jedi tells a man to go home and rethink his life choices, which I've always laughed at and thought was a good thing. But then when
It's
you think
kinda
about
dark.
it, you're like, holy shit, you are now like the deciders of what is morally right and wrong in the universe. And then 30 seconds later, Obi-Wan cuts a woman's arm off, who's assaulting him, sure, but cuts a woman's arm off, and Anakin says, nothing to see here, Jedi business, go back to your drinks.
And then they pull her out to the back alley.
Hey, yeah, and then they take her. What the fuck kind of republic is this, you sons of bitches?
Yeah, and not only that, there's just so many things that are in speaking of Obi-Wan as well, things that are just written backwards, like they don't make sense even in like the context of 5 minutes. Right before that scene, Anakin wants to run in after him, and Obi-Wan is like, wait, like think it through, like whatever he says, that same old like Jedi kind of bullshit that becomes really annoying in these movies. The monk stuff, right? Which is one, assuming that there isn't a back door that they can run through. They just assume that they're going to be trapped in this place. It's kind of weird. But he says that, and literally like 3 minutes before, we saw Obi-Wan like impulsively dive through a window to grab onto a robot that was flying away.
Yeah.
It doesn't make, it's totally backwards. Like it's kind of obvious that Anakin should be the person who dives through the window. Like that should be. It couldn't be clearer if that's the characters that you're trying to write. It's just so inconsistent at every step of the way, these movies. And again, that it kind of becomes laughable.
They just wanted to set up the action sequence of him flying on the robot, right? Like that was the vehicle to make that happen.
Yeah.
And I know George Lucas, when he talks about these movies, he says like they are action movies. They're and that's like the lens and the focus. And yeah, I think that's why so many other things fall apart, because they were so concerned with the visuals and the, and the shots and stuff.
Right.
That the script, doesn't really matter.
Clearly didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
And this is also the second Star Wars film in a row at the point it was released, where there's a pivotal battle at the climax. Much like in Empire, we have a big battle at the beginning. We have the big battle in A New Hope and the big battle at the end of Jedi. But the battles in these two prequel films are just like put all your soldiers in a row and march them at each other and pew pew at each other. There's no thought into like, oh, we're on a desert planet. Maybe on wide plains, wide sand dunes, you don't just line up all your men in front of the lasers. There was intelligent thought in the original trilogy. The Battle of Hoth, they're dug in, and they have to send in their heavy assault troops to blow them out of their dug in positions. In Jedi, the speeder chase through the forest. Those are cool, but there's no thought about these battles.
I didn't understand why the clone army would land on the ground at all.
Or why did the Jedi go in 20 minutes before the main forces arrive, just to like, you're killing all your Jedi just because you want to have a cool moment where the clone army arrives? Yoda, you're an awful general, resign.
Well, they were trying to get there before the prisoners were eaten by crazy pragmantis beasts, right?
Before Natalie Portman lost more of her clothing.
Yeah.
They were trying to find that sweet spot. Lose a bit of clothing, but not too much.
Yeah. I was confused as to why this movie was called Attack of the Clones.
They attack at the end.
Yeah,
they attack, they retaliate to protect the people that they're supposed to protect as
they
like
invade a
military body.
Yeah,
they invade a planet.
The deployment of the clones just doesn't ring as well.
I guess.
It's the whole thing too with it being called the Clone Wars, and when you hear that in Episode 4, and I think like older generation Star Wars fans, it's like, oh, what are the Clone Wars? Like there's this cloning experiment and it goes wrong, and the Republic has to fight a bunch of clones. It's like, nope, it's just a war where clones fought in it. It's not a war with clones.
And do you remember Boba Fett, who was in like 3 scenes in the original trilogy and really did nothing whatsoever? Yeah, his dad is the guy who gives all the clones their DNA. So,
the galaxy's way too small. There's some stuff there that just really, and George Lucas describes it as poetry or like rhyming couplets.
They rhyme.
There's rhymes, and it's like, give me a break,
God.
you fucking hack. Oh,
And what is like what has to happen in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago for a alien species to run a diner on Coruscant that is identical to an Earth 1950s diner? Like, is he Doctor Who? Is Dex Doctor Who in like some form we haven't seen or something?
I liked the set.
I like
didn't make
Dex.
any sense. I like Dex a lot. I thought it was cool that Obi-Wan and him had this like oh we're friends from back. And he's like, oh, what? And now this like what did Dex do before that he knows all this stuff?
Yeah.
And how did Obi-Wan and him become friends? Like,
Well,
I
you're
thought that
lucky,
was a
Adam.
fun-
Disney has just announced the three season Dex show.
The
It's
Dexter
gonna
Jetster
yeah,
solo
Dexter
film?
Jester solo series. It's gonna be
Series.
They have 3 seasons already signed on. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love
On
it.
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus only.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Woohoo!
what you don't realize, Sean, is that like styles come in cycles, right? Like to be retro and vintage. It's just that cycle's been going on longer than you realize. That's
It rhymes. It rhymes.
It
It's a
rhymes.
pattern.
It's like
Yeah.
poetry.
Okay.
That he would compare these movies to poetry is fucking insane. Okay, I think we'll explore more of these topics in other categories. So I think I'm going to end the round. Yeah.
Yeah.
So end of round.
Yeah.
Let's move into our next category. Looks good. Begin. This is an interesting one. That's the bell sound.
Correct. It is interesting. It's very interesting. I was ready after Star Trek Wrath of Khans to be like, you know what? I remember Attack of the Clones and I remember how fucking awful that CG background stuff looks. So right away, just the fact that it's all sets, models, the world's first use of CG, a complete scene done in only computer graphics when they're doing the model of the Genesis machine.
Oh, right.
The
right,
model
right.
of the
it can
Genesis machine.
When the
Like-
planet had like the pink like energy going across it, and it was like in the ad that the science people gave to.
Yeah.
And it's like, here's what
right.
Genesis does,
What
and they
it'll do.
showed the
Yeah,
first CGI scene in a movie.
So I was ready to just declare it a blowout winner. There's some cool looking stuff in Star Wars.
There's some really outstanding visual ideas
You know,
that I gotta
Go
give credit to.
on.
aliens. Yeah, go on, Jack.
Please elaborate.
Me or
Just-
Jack?
Just
Either one of you.
Either one. Just some of the design choices, like they were clearly made by very talented designers / craftsmen. That just the design of some of the spaceships and some of the city, like when they're arriving in Coruscant and you see these interesting kind of silver buildings coming out of the clouds, I kind of want to go, ooh, what's this? And then you're kind of let down again.
Yeah.
And the spaceship, and then like there's just a lot of stuff that is. It's like individual things. It's kind of like what you were saying, Adam, about how they were just literally putting pieces together. It doesn't fit together. That's the funny thing, is that they just took pieces from a bunch of different puzzles and were like, done. And like, mom and pop are like, try again, Timmy. You didn't get it. But there are little bits in there that you're like, that little section is very fascinating. And like, I wish, the same way that you see something, a character or a relationship, you're like, I wish I knew more about that. That's like this whole movie is just like a bunch of little things that you're like, even the design of like the bug world that they're on at the end, and like the
Geonosis, yeah.
Geonosis and what Geonosis is like. That's an interesting planet. It'd be cool if maybe more of the movie took place there. Even the design of the clone planet, the Cormorant, whatever.
Camino.
Camino.
Oh, Camino, yeah.
The
Right.
water planet with the little towers coming
Yeah.
out.
That I'm like, how did this species evolve out of the ocean and build these? I don't know, or did
To
they
become
settle
such
there? Like,
pricks.
you know what I mean? Like, because I become such pricks, like elitist pricks. But like, there's something in those designs that like are elements of what would be a really cool sci-fi movie. Like, I think the bug world and the design of those the monsters that come out, like the praying mantis monster was really interesting. Like,
Yeah,
there was lots of
There was
cool
great
stuff
design.
in there.
The
It was
aliens
just a
are-
garbage story.
Geonosians are a cool alien species, the likes of which we haven't seen in the Star Wars universe
Yeah.
yet.
Like sound wave guns and stuff.
The whole Soundwave's gun. The whole speeder chase scene, as stupid as the dialogue is, it looked really good because all the CG stuff is background. It's you're not focusing on it too long. It's just setting a scene. It's only when you have like that scene when Yoda is meditating because he can feel Anakin killing all of the sand people, and Mace Windu walks in, and Mace Windu is the only actor on screen. It's just CG, and he's probably talking at a tennis ball, and you can tell.
He's like, what do you sense?
I'm going to save some of that discussion for acting because I think that is a really good point that Sean brought up.
For sure.
But even like this, there's one thing in the speeder chase, I think, near the bit, but there's a big dive and the camera goes down, and then you see almost like the street grid and like this kind of like there's an orange illumination kind of outlining the. And it looked like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, wow, that looks so good. The silver Naboo ship at the beginning, I love the design of that ship. Cool. So yeah, for me, the visuals and the looks was probably the strongest of the categories for Clone Wars. For
like
sure.
they're just there's so many really good pieces. The rolling battle droids are cool. Like there's just stuff upon stuff upon stuff that are really interesting. Unfortunately, there's just nothing holding it together.
Daniel, what was your least favorite part of Attack of the Clones visually?
Visually.
I honestly, I have to say, I was really put off by the end battle scene in the Colosseum.
Yeah, it's stupid.
I thought that the graphics in that were fucking unforgivable, and there's just one too many shots of like a Jedi landing and then just like smiling off at nothing and kind of like giving like one of these Neo things. Yep. I thought it was awful.
It looked like they hired extras to play those Jedis.
Oh, they must have.
Like there was
Where'd they all come from?
I don't know, but they just seemed to have no connection. They just clearly were waving sticks, and they had no idea what they were doing. There was one, she landed and she did this, and then she did like a hand wave. She's like, yeah, and that was my pose. And they were like, that's fine. We're just gonna put a lightsaber on you, so they'll be happy.
The way that it looked on screen to me, I immediately thought that, they brought each actor in individually onto the blue screen, and alone they were like, okay, do your landing move, and they got them all individually, and then they just superimposed them all onto. So you have all these people who have no idea there are other people around them in the shot doing these cool moves to land.
Yeah, totally. I also think that there's no excuse for having the clone stormtroopers be CGI'd in this movie.
For sure.
Unacceptable.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Why is that?
Even.
Well, because there's no need for it. They're just people in fucking armor. You can do that with a person.
that's fucking true. Okay, yeah.
You had that. They had the technology 50 years ago. Like, what were they doing?
Yeah, that's
Or not 50, 40,
true.
30, whatever.
But you didn't have 200,000 of them. Huh?
No.
Sure, for those scenes, you can do it CGI. I don't care. But for the scenes where it's just Natalie Portman and one fucking stormtrooper in a desert, put him in a goddamn costume.
But don't you think it's all saved when at the climax of the film we have a fight between a CGI'd old man and a CGI puppet?
Oh, I changed my answer to your question, Sean. That was my least favorite moment visually of this movie.
The Yoda fight is such a fucking kick in the balls. Go ahead.
I didn't mind the Yoda fight. I didn't mind once the Yoda fight started, because I remember there's a bit of nostalgia for me, because I remember when I first saw this movie in theaters, I would have been 12. Maybe because
I was 12. I saw this on my 12th birthday. So
sorry.
So 2002, right? So I would have been 12 or 13 years old, and I remember losing my shit when I saw Yoda do all that fucking crazy stunt work.
Sure, because you were 12.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's still a soft spot in my heart for that fight scene, but everything leading up to that was a fucking train wreck. Just the shots of he's the guy from Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah,
Christopher Lee.
Christopher, yeah. Just the back and forth shots of him just like standing there like a fucking tree and just pointing his fingers at what is literally nothing. That it was just, but like they're trying to make it look so much better by like this loud swelling orchestral score, and it's just it made me want to barf. Not literally, but almost.
Adam, you looked like you had a fierce opinion on this.
Oh, there's a moment in that Yoda Dooku fight where Yoda, right? He's this sage, old, wise, moves slowly, and so every lightsaber fighter has their own style. What's Yoda's style gonna be? Well, it's gonna be something like
A
graceful and whatever. It's like, no, he's just gonna do a fuck ton of flips for no reason, and then literally jump across 3 platforms and land exactly back where he started for no reason at all.
If you love that, you'll love him jumping from politician seat to politician seat in
movie.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, there's a great, I think, I don't know if you came across it, but I've seen this clip before. There's a moment in those behind the scenes with George Lucas, and he's talking and he's describing this scene of Yoda fighting Dooku to someone, and he's like, yeah, and then we finally get to see that thing that everyone's been waiting for, where Yoda finally takes out his little lightsaber and goes to town, and the other person is like, yeah,
that's what we've been asking
that's what
for.
Nick, no one fucking wants that, you lunatic. Like, he just doesn't know, he doesn't even know his own story. Like, he doesn't even know what he's made.
Mm-hmm.
He has no idea.
No, he has no idea.
Well,
I have no
and
idea.
I heard in some other interview that he was talking about it with Frank Oz, and they said, oh, well, in this transition from moving to a puppet to CGI, we really have to make sure that it doesn't look cartoony, that it looks real, so people don't think it's funny. It's like, well,
Let's make it look like shit
you
instead.
missed the mark on that one, George.
Ooh, poor Frank
My
Oz. He
goodness.
just wanted to have his hand up a puppet while he talked.
The-
No, look. Yeah,
Mhm.
no,
Go ahead.
no, you
I was
go
gonna-
ahead.
I was gonna go to Khan. I was
You-
gonna
yeah,
transition.
I was too. I
Yeah.
was gonna say I love the red officers' jackets. I think they're dope as shit.
Those like away mission parkas that they had.
The
No.
ski resort ones. Or you mean
I don't know
the ones
no,
where they have
just
like
the,
a
the main,
padding?
they're like
Oh,
they're
the
like
flap.
main with the flap that folds
Oh,
down and
right,
goes back
right,
up,
right, yeah.
and has the
Great.
little bar that has your insignia or your rank on it. I fucking think those are the best. Those are the best Star Trek uniforms I think out of any of the series.
Okay, we got it. We'll get one for Aaron. Just chill.
Yeah.
Okay, we got it.
Whoa.
Understood.
Wish list. Well, no, there was someone, I think it was on the Wikipedia page, the costume designer talked, like, they dyed a bunch of old Star Trek costumes they had from some other production, and is like wanted to make like a really off color red, like a color of red that isn't really used in to make it seem like a different time, because it's like this red doesn't show up in our like world and
80s
in
style.
modern history, today. So people will see this color and it's just an off enough red that it'll automatically make them think of a different time, which I thought was kind of cool and worked really well.
Yeah, that's clever.
The jackets
did, yeah.
were
One
dope.
thing that I also liked was just like the design of Kirk's like office. I thought was a cool
his, like,
practical space.
His quarters at the base, or
I don't know if I think they were like at the base, like not on the ship, where he had like a
when
bunch
he has
of
the
old.
guns on the wall and the books.
There were like guns on the walls. There's
Yeah.
armor. There's books. There's like old like there's like model boats. Like it's pretty captainy on the nose.
Yeah.
But it was still a really cool, a really interesting space. Like it was great.
Is that the scene he has with Bones?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he
the,
brings
the,
out
the Romulan ale for his
Yeah.
birthday present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
The antifreeze that he brings for him. The, like, blue.
Yeah. The long shot leaving the I already mentioned it, leaving the ships leaving the base, and all I could think of was Galaxy Quest, and how I didn't realize how much Galaxy Quest pulled from Wrath of Khan. It makes sense. It was probably the most talked about Star Trek film up to that point, but that whole sequence, I was waiting for the Enterprise to scrape its engine against the walls as it was coming out.
In the original draft of the script, the Genesis device was called the Omega device.
Yeah.
And then they changed it from some kind of weapon into a terraforming device, which I think is like a really cool thing. But they pulled that for Galaxy Quest 2, right? Like
Activate the Omega 13.
Yeah. Galaxy Quest is
It's
very
perfect.
tasty.
Yeah.
I could have sworn, Adam, that that's what you were going to suggest for this week's pairings based on your video last week. When you go to your alien incoming transmission, I was sure of it.
Commandos.
Thermian.
Yeah, I just knew that would be the classic, and I couldn't think of any schlocky sci-fi film that would compete with it. It would be like a sweep, because Quest for me is just so good, and I really wanted it to be competitive because that was my goal picking movie is they have to be a little bit close. So I couldn't think of something to go with Galaxy Quest, but
Pluto, just go full out like Pluto Nash.
Pluto Nash.
Don't hold back. It's I think it's worth comparing of why it is kind of tricky. I do love the fact that Star Trek had way better practical sets and stuff like that. That they just built more stuff and that was great. When they do have to rely on more CGI, it does get kind of
it's still models being suspended from a crane that are being moved shot by shot through the studio so they can do the
spaceship battles where it's the tactic both times is I went sideways and then got behind them. Well, we went down and then got behind them, and then the torpedoes are pew, where it's
that whole end scene is pretty problematic for a number of reasons.
Where if you compare that to Obi-Wan fighting Jango Fett's fighter, it's this is a space action thing. That scene also has dumb shit in it, but it's at least what I want that to be a bit more.
Yeah, I honestly think that the graphics and the visual effects that Star Trek uses are better applied than the technology that Lucas uses in Star Wars. It looks like it's very dated. This movie is 1982. You cannot make this movie in that year and not
hilarious.
Make the pants.
Oh my God.
The pants with, for some reason, a fold in the front of everything. Is that how you go to the bathroom now?
All the people in high-heeled boots.
Yeah.
Bones had a suit when he visited Kirk in his quarters on the base, and it was just this weird jumpsuit, and the crotch of the pants was a different color than the legs. So it had this weird kind of Superman underwear thing with this beige parachute pants. It was real something.
It's the future.
And of course, the Star Trek classic that you can't make a film or series without is the bridge during a battle and everyone having to throw themselves one way and then throw themselves another way.
The cameras
flip over the railings and stuff. The debris falling. I thought it was hilarious when Khan picked up the piece of foam debris it was heavy and then threw it kind of at the camera.
Yep.
What I loved, speaking of that, what I loved the most was the fact that they themselves recreate that same kind of action during the Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah.
Why
do you have live explosives?
But they're also flinging themselves over railings, and it looks so ridiculous.
But why do you have live explosives in your training routine? Why is the bridge exploding?
No, those are just those are fake explosives.
They're blanks.
Yeah,
they're blanks.
Whatever that means.
Right, they're non-lethal explosives.
I did like and I guess this kind of goes back to the story category, but the mirror between the Kobayashi Maru and then his encounter with Khan later on, and how Kirk was being put through the test again for real. I thought that was, I think visually there was one thing they did that I almost didn't catch. There's a scene where, and it's a really long take, where Bones and Kirk are going down an elevator after Sarek, I think.
Yeah.
The model. Saavik. Sarek is Spock's dad. Saavik, who the actor, who left the elevator. They go down, and then when the elevator opens again, the exterior background is changed. So they've actually gone to a new floor, but it's all one take. So I imagine the doors closed, and then people moved sets around and set a new room.
Or they rotated the thing that they were standing in. You know what I mean? I thought that too. I
didn't even pick up on that. Holy shit.
Yeah,
okay.
I thought it was great. Yeah.
This is a tough category.
I have to say, I think the design overall of Khan and his people was terrible.
It was awful.
Yeah.
I think they look totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
I kind of understand more now that if they were going for a bit of a eugenics thing, that they were all genetically modified, and so they were mirroring the Nazi Aryan look. It's just I kind of wanted them to look more I don't know, people who've been living on a desert planet for a long time,
Yeah.
and I don't know, we're some futuristic idea of what genetically perfect looks like that isn't like blonde hair, blue eyed. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. There was an interesting choice there that I think was glossed over with some like 80s looking.
Well, what did they look like in the
Hunkaroonies.
original episode?
I feel like Khan, at least in the original episode, was wearing kind of like almost like a black, like tight fitting, like sweater turtleneck thing. Like it definitely wasn't these weird rags and like almost like a Police music video or like a old Sting music video or something. Like they weren't wearing that shit for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Or if it was like skins, or they said there's nothing really surviving on the planet. So I don't know. I just, I think there were missed opportunities with that overall that they could have been way more interesting. Instead, I kind of always rolled my eyes. And then when you saw them like sitting in the deck of the other ship, it was even more like,
Yeah, when they're all in perfect band album, like their fourth album cover position.
yeah, just wasn't the greatest.
I only have one more thing to add to looks, and it is asking why Padme was wearing dominatrix leathers when she was in her country home.
She's a senator.
Right. I'm a senator.
I'm a senator.
I used to be a democratically elected queen, and now I'm a senator.
Look, he says, listen. And then she says, no, you listen. We live in a real world. Come back to it.
Yeah. It's good dialogue. It's
Good dialogue.
There's one look thing I have just before, and when they meet Watto, I think that's his name, back on which is, anyways, like I'm not going to dive into all that. But there's one moment, and I can say it's looks because it's not acting because it's a CGI. It's not an actor. But when Watto recognizes who Anakin is, and there's this brief like look, and then he's kind of like talks to him like, "Oh, you're this old friend that I had," and it's like, "Well, no, he was your slave, dude."
Yeah.
But there's this little look and that kind of reaction and that realization, just kind of like I thought was a nice moment.
You almost forget that he is an anti-Semitic stereotype.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, not quite.
Just a stereotype of anyone in the Middle East at all. Let's just,
Yeah.
I don't think Lucas was even being that specific.
Oh, I think he was. I think he was.
I mean, there's so many things like that, especially in the prequels, like how all the Trade Federation, like they have like, I don't know if it's Thai, I think, but they have like these Asian accents.
Yeah,
And-
except for the one guy in this episode who's got this like, yeah, we better get out of here voice.
And Jar Jar as well, like his
All the
there's
Gungans.
yeah, it's not good.
Well-
Yay. I still want Darth Jar Jar. I'm still very in favor of that fan storyline.
Mhm.
I want it. I wish it were true. It sounds like a way better thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
if you don't know Darth Jar Jar, look up Darth Jar Jar.
Look it up.
Well, let's end the round. Let's move on. So end of round here. So let's move into our third round now. Sounds good? That's me hitting the bells, by the way, for the effect. This is interesting because I'll say right away, the score for the prequels is great. The score is,
Yeah.
I guess. The Duel of Fates. That's what it's called, right?
Phenomenal.
Like
Even when it's
that's
just
epic.
played over Anakin talking to a Jawa. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So someone mentioned something with Duel of the Fates about how I think it was Dave Filoni actually, the guy who heads up Mandalorian and the Clone Wars. His professional job is just like fixing Star Wars movie failures by making TV shows that like correct all the mistakes. But he said that the Duel of the Fates track in Episode 1, Phantom Menace, is not about Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's fate. It's about like Anakin's fate, and if Qui-Gon had lived and mentored Anakin, then like he wouldn't have become Darth Vader and do. And that Duel of the Fates, like throughout the prequels, is always about Anakin, even in Episode 1. Which I don't know if I really bought that to be honest, but I thought it was an interesting take.
I love the Padme Anakin theme. I think the music does most of the legwork in getting us to accept their relationship.
They rolled in the
Did
grass,
well.
though.
They did roll after he got thrown.
Oh my
by
god! How did we not talk about
tick?
that?
A giant
I know.
tick.
Yeah, a giant tick.
I think it's a giant tick.
Giant tick cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they rolled in the sand. They had a picnic. They were in a space gondola. They're in love. Okay, shut up. You
I
know,
love the
that's-
moment when they kiss and she's like, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that," and he's so obvious. He's like, "Oh, okay."
I know we're dipping back to story, but just Anakin Padme stuff. I really meant
Barf.
to mention this. When he confesses that he's just slaughters a village of, and her reaction is. To be angry, to be angry is human, or like to feel anger is human. It's like you got to get the fuck out of there, Padme. Like Anakin's this crypto fascist who just fucking murdered all these people, and it's okay. No, everyone has a bad day.
The exact line was, "They were animals, and I slaughtered them like animals."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, honey."
Oh, it's so
And
bad.
not just the men, the women, the children.
Children.
Oh.
There should have been some more questions if she was like, so like 2 or 3, we're talking like 3 people, we're talking like 24.
You're talking like a village.
Like
you
a small
murdered,
village of.
You murdered a village. Okay. All right.
well, I'm just gonna.
All right.
3PO. 3PO. Help me.
Had me
Obi-Wan
taking
Kenobi.
off in the background. Yeah. That's how it should go.
He's like recording a help message for R2D2. They rhyme. You see?
Oh, they rhyme.
There it is. They rhyme.
The ship sounds are phenomenal in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Every ship sounds cool. The blaster sounds all
For sure.
fucking cool.
Yeah.
Love them.
The pews and the yeah.
pews and the wob wob wobs. Just
Yep.
The Foley work and like the sound effect library for Star
Yeah.
Wars is it's
Yeah.
really top notch.
The aliens and the animals and stuff like that, all interesting sounds. They feel right. Like they look like they were designed for what they look like, for sure.
Yeah, it seems like whoever he passed that task on to be like, here's my incoherent notes about the races that we have to show. You realize them for me. Whoever had that job nailed it.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Surrounded by brilliant. That's the thing. George Lucas was surrounded by a lot of really talented artists.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to do with them. I'll say this though, even the positive things I said about like the designs of stuff, because we didn't really touch on this, and I kind of want to. And this happens a lot at this point in the podcast. I think the visual of, we mentioned it a little bit, the ear slug and those desert bugs, all of that stuff was truly stomach turning, and like a great. I don't even know how they did all of it. They all made little puppets. I'm guessing it was all just puppets and stuff.
I think they just made like clay ear models.
But then they.
We're talking
made,
about Wrath of Khan, right? Or
Yeah. But like the puppets of the bugs in the dirt was really cool.
Oh yeah, those would have been just puppets, I think. Yeah, just like
Yeah.
regular-
Yeah, it's
And then,
just
like-
a hand popped up going like,
Right.
but it is really cool. Yeah.
It was really
Yeah.
cool, and like pulling the little slugs like out of the cracks in its back is really gross idea. And then, but I know they made a little like wax ear, but then. So I guess it was on like a fishing wire, and they
and
pulled
the
it.
ketchup they squirted out as it gets pulled, as it comes out of his ear later.
But whatever they did, it was full of ingenuity, and it worked so well.
But on that
Better
note,
than-
I was unclear as to the logic of how those ear larvae
Oh my
operate.
god! Yeah,
There is
you
none.
could-
It is a really like see-through plot device that is
Yeah.
meant that they needed in order for Chekhov to do the things that he did.
Right.
the one dude tries to resist them in that moment, and so he can't. So he shoots himself, and then literally like the next moment, Chekhov is just like,
No.
and like, and like no, and like
Poops it out.
and like squeezes it out, and they're like, oh, it's like the other dude had to kill himself.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that if we see Chekhov like after that moment. And I was wondering, I don't know if we do have like, did Chekhov just die? Like, did he just his brains mush the worm? And he obviously didn't, but that was how I reconciled it. Was like, nah, he's just dead.
I hated it too when Chekhov came back into the bridge, and they looked at him, and he was kind of gave like a physical thumbs up, as it were, and then like a nod, and they were like, yeah, he's back. It's like, didn't you just facilitate like the massacre of a space station? Aren't you like really messed up right now that you were like aware of but not able to stop? Like, I would be out of it for a while. Just want you to know. I'd be like, this one's on you. I lie down. But I wondered if the guy shooting himself was like an homage to the Redcoat, because when they went on the planet, he had a red spacesuit and Chekhov had a yellow
Right.
spacesuit, and then he ended up shooting himself. So I wondered if that was like an
Well,
homage.
they
to
did
the
have
Redcoat.
Lieutenant Preston or something, Mr. Preston, who is the only one at the beginning who steps out of line to introduce himself, and at that moment you're like, you're going down, Preston. Sorry. And then he's the one that Scotty is holding in that comedic like, oh my boy, oh.
Oh, is that the one where he's on the table afterwards and he's like, "Is the order given, sir?"
Yeah.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah. But sounds. Star Trek. They both have great scores.
Yeah, nice.
They both have
scores.
great scores. I was
Very
annoyed
sparse.
by, like I talked about, the lack of score in a lot of places that I felt needed it in Star Trek.
Yeah. I agree.
Because there's a lot of dead air and a lot of uneven ADR, which was hella distracting. And uneven, like it's synced up with the mouth, but uneven in terms of like the levels. So in the
Right.
same conversation, the levels in their mic would change like 3 times because they were just ADRing random chunks of the dialogue.
Yeah, I'd say both these movies suffer from levels that were far from perfect, in my opinion. Where like it just seemed like all the effects were put on louder than people talking in both movies, I would say.
Yeah.
Star Trek
Yeah, I
a
didn't-
bit better, I think.
I didn't
better
notice
in
it as
Star
much
Trek.
in Star Trek because there was just so much fucking noise happening all the time
Right.
that it just became like it was just all kind of blended together. But because there's so much downtime in Star Trek, everything was just way more obvious.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think visually there was some stuff in Star Trek. Some of the shots of like the nebula and like as they approached, there was one shot where they were approaching Regulus or the space research lab.
Right.
And they had like orange and blues in the background of like and some of those, although it was a model flying up to another model, some of the colors and stuff in the backdrops I thought were really nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Turned pretty well.
But yeah, I mean, sound is always a tricky one. Like, I don't know what else. Like, they both have kind of nice scores. I would probably favor Clones' score. I think it's
Well, we'll find out.
more.
Thanks for reminding me, Jack, that we're on the sound category.
It's okay. We went back to story for a while, and then we did looks. And
That's always the hard part of the game, right?
yeah.
Sound is always the category where we've gone a bit far enough from story that there's always a couple things. They're like, oh, I never said that thing, and you know what? It really needs to be said. It happens like every episode. It's okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, any other thoughts? I mean, I agree, Sean. Like all the sound design is good. I'd say for both of these movies, like the sound design in both, I would say has been well suited to them. Like
The bagpipes, I could not forgive. At the end, I thought it was ridiculous that Scotty would be playing bagpipes for his Vulcan. I guess because I hated it. I really hated it. And then it melds into an orchestral version of Amazing Grace, which almost saves it, but it was just slightly out of tune.
Oh, but the Amazing Grace orchestral thing with the planet and the little like glow.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
I did
you
not.
didn't like it?
No, it was like Amazing Grace. Really?
really,
Right, fair
yeah.
enough.
Come on, give me
Yeah.
a break. I just can't stand that tune anymore. It's just too...
You played enough church services?
Yeah, I can't do it. I've worked for many years as a church music director, so I just play organ and piano and do but even just like in movies and in television, like it's like we're gonna make the artistic decision to use Amazing Grace in this scene.
Yeah.
It's like
Whoa.
Inspired.
no,
Well
come
done.
on,
I should have played Vulcan Amazing Grace.
lazy.
Well, yeah, they should have. But let's just play. Let's just do it. Let's just play Amazing Grace for this category, and send it off into space. Not technically, not literally. And so let's say end of round. Let's move into our fourth and final kind of main category, which is acts good. No.
Well, there
little.
is things in one movie that come close to acting, and in other movie things that come close to not being acting. There's a lot of I don't like Khan. I think I might be one of the few people here who found
Really?
Khan comedic and annoying for the vast majority of him being on screen. to be
I
honest.
actually kind of agree.
Oh,
I didn't really
disagree
like-
so hard. I thought he was fascinating. And he was chewing some scenery for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a Star Trek movie. I thought it worked really
Sure.
well.
Yeah, it's not a movie breaker for me. I will happily accept the performance is what it is. I know it's a character. I just think it is very much of an era that I can do without when it comes to acting.
Sure. What I'll say is I will take Roberto Montalban's performance over Kirstie Alley's any day of the
Sure.
week.
In anything, yeah.
And anything, but in this specifically, this was her first movie, right?
It was introducing
Yeah.
Kirstie Alley.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, look who's
Oof.
talking. Come on.
What?
Give her
Oh,
Christy Alley, John
Cheers.
Travolta. How we not get
Right.
that on the podcast.
ooh.
Yeah, Sean, I'm in the same boat as you. It wasn't movie breaking. I kind of tolerated it, and I kind of looked at it, and I think I was even kind of thinking like, oh, I think this is a remnant of what like the source material is like this kind of stuff. And I even in the costumes and everything, like this is what I know old Star Trek looks and feels like.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of the movie was doing something more interesting and trying to do something a bit more grounded. And so I was enjoying what Shatner was doing. I liked Kirk's
Yeah.
thing, and
Yeah.
Spock is a funny character. It's like, I don't know. I like Leonard Nimoy. I think he's
Yeah.
great as
He
Spock.
didn't have much written for him in this except to die.
Yeah, he feels like a character that doesn't do much. He just kind of like inserts. He's like, by the way, logic, blah blah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
But
all he
I
ever
liked-
really is, right?
He's,
But
Yeah,
he's not the id. Is he the superego and Bones is the id and Kirk is the ego? Is that what the dynamic's supposed to be? I never understood.
he's
the-
certainly
Yeah.
just there to be a foil for Kirk.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, just to amplify what Kirk is. So I liked what was happening there, and I liked Shatner's performance. I thought he was good. It's
It
just
was.
so whenever Khan appeared and started to be his counterpart, like, I follow you until you die. I was like, okay.
All right.
I think that the one scene I really liked with Khan was when we first meet him
Yeah.
on the planet, and like the unmasking and intimidated, like when he's threatening Chekhov. And I thought I was like, oh, like this dude's actually scary, but
Yeah.
kind of has this charisma and this charm, but there's like this weird, like he's kind of crazy. But I think the idea that he's crazy and could do anything at any time, and like that's really scary, doesn't really track through the rest of the movie. I know,
No.
I don't know. And they say he's really intelligent. I think Spock says it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And then he does stuff like when they go into the nebula at the end, he asks his secondhand person to raise the shields. The guy just told you
Yeah. No
2
shield.
minutes ago that the shields won't
Yeah.
work if you go in the
Yeah.
nebula. How did you forget that? I don't know.
Dodoy. I really wanted, this is maybe a story thing too, but I really wanted that second in command guy to be a stronger force in the film as someone who like slowly realizes that Khan is not acting rationally because his desire for revenge, his tragic flaw, is overcoming everything that they're trying to accomplish, but they just want to survive, right? So I wanted a power struggle. I wanted there to be a moment where Khan has to deal with the fact that his vengeance is not beneficial for the community that he is doing this for. Didn't get it, but
Yeah. I think it was also a missed opportunity that, as you say, Adam, I agree. The good moment with Khan was his first introduction, right? Where it's like person to person. And I think it was a bit of a failure in creating this movie to have him stuck on the other spaceship the whole movie.
Yeah.
I just think there needed to be more physical confrontation. I think he somehow needed to, like, the fact that Kirk is like, if you want someone, you can take me. And like, just to have Kirk over on their ship, I'm like, and then they didn't do it. And I was like, oh, you're not? Because I think I want to see that. Like, I think I want to see you meet face to face. Like, I think that would be good. So one way or the other, or on a planet's surface or something. And we kind of missed that. They're like these rivals that never actually meet face to face, which is kind of not good.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it is like an interesting choice to not have like the fist fight and like the physical brawler scene.
Yeah, don't need that. Don't need that.
But I think that part of what makes the character like and his Ricardo's performance so like is that he is very physically intimidating and I think the way he like kind of and I feel sitting on the other side of like a computer monitor and just sort of sitting in his chair with those ridiculous shining oiled up pecs. It's just not you don't get that sense of like his power, I guess, or his like physical strength. So I agree it was a missed opportunity for sure.
But then other people in Star Trek are shitty, and they're shitty in a kind of unforgivable way where I'm like, wait, did you act like on a television show for a decade and you never figured it out? Bones is a non-actor. Bones is a non-actor.
Well, Bones is doing the 60s Star Trek thing. And so is Chekhov. And so is George Takei to a degree. That was the problem is that go ahead, Sean.
The scene where Bones brings the Romulan ale to Kirk, as soon as they move away from each other and start talking about other things, it is these two very stiff, middle-aged actors who are doing a style of acting that was popular when they were in theater school, but going into the 80s, it's starting to not be so much. That scene was stale and rough to watch. As they're just like sitting on opposite ends of the stage talking to each other. It was rough.
So it just feels like everyone around them. And I feel like Kirk was the closest because he had the most to work with for sure.
Yeah, Kirk does some great stuff in this film.
But everyone else is bad. Is it worse though than what we watch in Clone Wars though?
Right.
Well, there's one thing I want to mention really quickly that I thought was really interesting about William Shatner's performance in this. In the commentary, the director mentioned that, learning to work with the different actors, I had to direct them differently in order to get the best take. Right. And for working with William Shatner, what I had to do was after a few takes, I would get... So in the initial takes, it was like he was too... protecting himself by acting. He was clearly acting and it didn't really work. But after a few takes and he was kind of getting tired and whatever, he'd lose his concentration and then just sort of no longer act and just deliver the lines. And then that would give me the better take. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. Like I thought that was really great.
There's stories from the original series where directors were like, we had to do 42 takes of the scene before Shatner dropped whatever the fuck was going on with him that day and just like said the lines. So he's one of those actors that has a lot of walls up around him. Not like he's had some shit go on in his personal life that like I don't blame him for that kind of stuff, but 40 some odd takes for your film.
That's right.
So here's the thing. And this is ultimately when I'm rating acting, individual performances are one thing, but I kind of look at overall and I go, okay, but are these people and like the key players, are they elevating the work or are they not? Are they delevating, I believe is the word.
Correct.
And that's the funny thing. So when I come to Clone Wars, there's a lot of bad stuff in it. I look at it though, and I kind of think that seems like it's mostly the fault of the writing and the lack of story and a complete lack of direction. There are moments in performers and a general thing, like even what terrible Hayden Christensen is doing, like it's not good. I think they are helping to make this movie a movie. Look, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying.
Oh man, I don't know how I feel about that.
I know, but if like Attack of the Clones wouldn't be a movie if you didn't have Natalie Portman sort of selling lines a little bit, and Ewan McGregor
When does she sell a line?
She has moments where she's like clearly acting something. I think you can't argue that.
There's two moments in the movie, and I can't pinpoint them exactly, but I know they're in moments where Anakin has gone like one step too far in his creep factor, and she's like, back the fuck up, dude.
You're
and, like,
making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. And in those moments, but also like how receiving what you're getting from Hayden Christensen in that moment, how do you not just be like, whoa, fucking chill? But aside from that, I agree. I think that she is, of the two, of her and Hayden Christensen, she's the more wooden one. She's actually harder to watch.
Truly, deeply love you.
Look, they're both bad. I'm just saying, I think there are actors in this that are they made the movie.
Ian McDiarmid, nailing everything he does.
It's his
The
universe.
Emperor, or the Chancellor.
Oh yeah, he's great. I thought Dooku,
Dooku, Christopher Lee. Well, yeah, one of the greats. Yeah.
I thought he was dope.
His scene with Ewan while Ewan is like floating, I never really caught that scene before.
Yeah, it's great.
Is he actually trying to help him and saying like,
No,
'cause
he's tricking him.
No,
he
he's
is tricking
lying,
him.
Yeah, but
'Cause
that's
I thought
cool.
it was like, because the Sith apprentice always eventually wants to kill their master.
Yeah.
So I wondered if it was Dooku actually saying like, help me kill him for that purpose, so he could be the last. You
is
know what I mean? So I
Dooku-
wondered.
Adam, maybe you know this because the other two won't help me on this one. Is Dooku also Cypher Diem?
No. So,
Okay.
and this is something that George Lucas said is like, well, I wanted to explain it in the third movie, but I thought
But I forgot.
It'd be better to focus on Anakin and Padme's love story instead.
Ugh.
So Sifo Dyas was so there were all these Jedi that were kind of like a little group of friends that were disillusioned with the Jedi Order and thought
Right.
they're just kind of become servants of this corrupt republic. They're hypocrites. They're not actually really doing anything. They're just sitting around pontificating, and they're not using the Force.
Correct.
properly. Correct. And I think that's a really interesting thing that these prequel movies made the Jedis like kind of into douchebags.
Yeah. They're a shitty police force.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was a cool take. Although it all is kind of like, oh, I thought Jedis were supposed to be like
Mm.
heroes.
But they're like these sterile, sexless, loveless
Monks.
like monks. That's like, oh, you guys are lame.
So Dooku, Qui-Gon Jinn, Sifo Dyas, and the librarian who we meet briefly, Jocasta, I think.
Sure.
They're all friends, and Qui-Gon was Dooku's apprentice, I think.
Oh.
And
yeah, that's
so
said in the movie.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Sifo Dyas goes, he thinks that the Republic needs an army because he has a Force vision that something really bad is going to happen and that there's going to be a war. So they need an army. He presents this to the Jedi Council. They say, nah, like we've made it this far as a galactic republic somehow without an army. We don't need one. And then he says, fuck that, we do, and leaves and orders it in secret. Dooku finds out about it because they're buddies. And Dooku at this point, I guess, had just sort of defected and left the order.
Right.
So he goes and Palpatine tasked Dooku, hey, Dooku, if you kill Sifo Dyas, like your best bud, that's your proof that you're my apprentice and I'm your master. So go kill him. Dooku kills Sifo Dyas. And then Dooku goes to Kamino and follows up on the order of the clones. And that's why Jango Fett says, oh no, I encountered this guy Tyrannus on the moons of Bogdar or whatever he said, because Dooku is the one who ends up fulfilling the order with the
Right.
So the Kaminoans or what they're actually, because we don't really know for sure, but they are totally like bad guys and are backstabbing the Jedi.
So are you telling me that rude librarian knew that that planet was erased from the library and was playing the long game with Obi-Wan?
I don't think she knew. I think she was just like, she was friends with I think she was just kind of.
They were bone buddies?
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe the four of them got a little force action going on.
The dark side of the force? Wow. Acting.
Oh, this is what about Christopher Lee doing a great job in this movie. I think part of the reason that he really does well when many of the other actors don't, this whole idea of like a completely blue screen, green screen background and like digital characters and just being able to do a scene with a partner that's not there. Well, Christopher Lee had done all these monster movies, and these monsters
Oh, yeah.
were so fake. Like there was
Yeah.
these horribly costumed, like clearly fake monsters, but he had to deliver the scene like, yeah, this is a real terrifying monster that I'm working with. And I think he's one of the few actors in the movie that actually, just to an empty background, can imagine what's happening and deliver it really. So I don't know,
damn.
like his experience in all those cheap horror
In the B movies, yeah. The original Wicker Man.
hired him for that. But
Yeah.
I thought he kicked ass. Like he was, for me, one of the strongest performances.
Absolutely.
What do we think about Ewan? Because I
Bit the
love
shit.
Ewan McGregor,
Bad.
right? Unfortunately,
I thought he was doing the best he could
Like,
with what he
he's
had.
yeah, I agree with that.
There's only so much you can fault him, right? When the material is trash, he's making lemonade, man.
I think a good director, I think good direction and good actors can overcome bad writing. This just happened to have a trifecta of having the bad writer also be the bad director.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, and that rule doesn't apply as much in film, I'm afraid. In theater, it does because you ultimately are the one on stage doing it. But in film, like you don't pick what cut they choose, like what edit.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Fair.
Like you can think that all you want, and you can try and have 12 dope takes where you elevate the work, but you know, that's not a guarantee.
There, I had a shoot. It just was in my head here. It's gone. I'm sorry.
it's gone.
Sam, you're thinking about how dope Sam Jackson was, though,
Oh my God. Talk about somebody who can't handle text. Holy fuck.
or just cashing a paycheck. Holy
Well,
shit!
Yeah.
Well, he really
does
wanted
not
to be in
give a
Star
fuck.
Wars. He really
Yeah.
wanted to be in Star Wars, and they let him have a purple lightsaber because he wanted to be unique.
Yeah.
But like again, I think it comes down to what there is being asked of these actors in an era where the green screen stuff is something that they have not encountered a whole lot of. And when you are doing a scene where you are talking to a tennis ball for the first time, doesn't matter how many takes you get, you're still talking to a tennis ball for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's not going to come off great. Also, how many scenes of walking, talking, or sitting and talking are there where there's no actual task being done? And most of those involve Mace Windu, where he's just walking or sitting, and
Yeah.
there's no reason for anything.
Yeah, because of the restrictions of those blue screens meant
Yeah.
they couldn't do any. Well, they could have still done stuff, but they just didn't. Right.
Yeah.
It's not like now where they make the Marvel movies and they build whole green screen sets that have both practical and CGI components and whatnot.
I can't wait for the crossover when Thanos arrives in a galaxy far, far away.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Let's just combine all movies into one universe
Yeah.
and just finish it. Let's end this.
I mean,
I think one last for the acting, and there was one moment where I think the Dooku bit telling Obi-Wan about like Palpatine's plan. Like what was the motive for that? Like Sean, you mentioned this earlier, like it really doesn't, like okay, he's gonna take him and make him his apprentice and kill
Yeah.
Palpatine and take over the galaxy with Obi-Wan,
Oh.
but that doesn't really track either.
I think that scene is him trying to trick Obi-Wan a little bit. I think ultimately his goal is he wants Obi-Wan to see his reason. He's not, like, his points aren't wrong. Him saying that the Republic is being led by dark forces and that we need to like wake up and solve these issues outside of the Republic. He's not saying falsities. I think he's trying to trick Obi-Wan a little bit to get him onto their side. So it's it's the only scene with subtext.
Yeah, it felt like one of the only scenes. The scenes
Yeah.
on Camino are okay. Ewan with the aliens is
where
like
he's-
kind of
he's
fine.
pretending.
His
Although
moment with Django is like almost a scene.
yeah, asking the prime minister of Camino what the clones are is kind of a dead giveaway to you having no idea what's going on. But yeah.
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 But it's like sort of, I felt like he got a day on set where he was like, I'm going to have fun. A day, a week.
I feel like most of our acting notes are criticizing the story.
Well, that's the thing. And that's why I kind of ask, though, but how much were the actors actually trying to make that shitty story and abysmal script actually better? And how many times was the acting in Star Trek actually detracting from like a decent story?
And I will answer that by saying A New Hope is also written by George Lucas. So it is possible to take George and American Graffiti. Not a like superb film, but it's a well-acted film. It's a script by George Lucas.
Did George Lucas also direct A New Hope?
Yes, he did. It is the only
did.
of the original ones that he directed. So I think it is possible to do George Lucas text properly.
Yeah, but I think he had collaborators. I think
He did. He absolutely did. He
yeah,
was
you
running
know,
away
like
all
there
his
were
friends,
drafts
yeah.
of the script.
That's fair. And this is
yeah.
on its own.
Yeah, and Attack of the Clones is like George Lucas on fucking steroids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of like
with
of a first
no
draft.
set.
Yeah. You can like there's again I think behind the scenes there's like it shows him this writing on like a legal pad, and he's like got a first draft done, and you're like okay, sure.
I agree with Daniel about Natalie Portman's performance.
Thank
That the only lines that really like that worked were when
Rang
she was
true.
saying about how Anakin was a creep.
Check out you weirdo.
There was one line that I wrote down where Anakin gives her like just leers at her, and she says, "Don't look at me like that." Like, and
Yeah.
it's actually like one of the most convincing lines that she
Get the
gives.
fuck
It's like,
away from me.
"Don't fucking look at me like
Yeah.
that." So I thought that was pretty.
I will
funny.
say my final acting note is Rose Byrne played her lady in waiting for the first like
Yeah.
third of the film.
Rose Byrne.
And she's one of the characters who is never introduced in scenes, just someone who lurks at. So you have the main characters, they all walk in, they all shake each other's hands, they have pointless dialogue introducing each other, and then they go about their pointless business talking about the grave stakes that are happening in the universe. Meanwhile, there are all these actors that are just standing there uselessly, and Rose Byrne is one of them until she gets her one line where she cries because Padme is going away. But like, I wanted more Rose Byrne.
But was she Rose Byrne back when this movie
No,
was
she
made?
was a
Yeah.
young actress trying to make it.
Right.
Keira Knightley is apparently also in the
Yeah.
in
She's her queen double in Phantom Menace.
right. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun stuff. Anyways, I'm done acting. We know what this is.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
have
know, I think there's gonna be some
one final thing
The
for
final
acting.
one.
Leonard Nimoy as Spock. I think that,
Mhm.
and this is I guess kind of story, but the whole thing that Vulcans, it's not that they don't have any emotions and that they actually feel emotions like incredibly strongly, but that they work and they construct this thing in their mind to like regulate and control their emotions.
Right.
And anytime that Leonard Nimoy just does just a little twitch with his face, or like sometimes he'll have these little, he'll show this moment. There was one in Cannes when one of his students died, like one of the cadets got
Yeah.
killed, and he kind of just like showed this moment of sadness, and that kind of serene face like broke for a second.
Yeah.
And I think although it can be a little weird sometimes, that Nimoy as like does that really well, that idea. He's the only actor playing a Vulcan in almost like all of Star Trek that like really sells it and makes it work.
He's
Yeah,
a
for
really
sure.
smart actor.
Yeah.
He's very economical, and he got the role for a reason. He knows exactly what he has to do to get across what's trying to be conveyed.
Yeah.
Well, the one moment that stood out to me was when Kirk goes to see him in the radioactive chamber at the end of the movie, and he hears Kirk's voice, and he can't see anything, but he knows he's there. So before he goes to actually face him, he very slowly kind of works his way to his feet, and then just quickly adjusts his uniform
Yeah.
so that he's presentable for him. And I
Yeah.
thought that was so smart and such a great character choice.
Should we rate
sure.
these bad boys?
Well,
oh no,
we
we
gotta-
have liking gripe.
We have Lecky Grape.
Right.
Lecky Grape. So let's end the round there. I can, if you want to put a sound effect in, you can right here.
I won't. I'm just gonna let you wave and flail.
So end of round. So before we get into our ratings and then our bonus round after, let's do our round of likes and gripes. Likes and gripes. It's getting better every week.
No, it's not.
Fuck. How this works is that we got 2 minutes on a timer here to go around, and we'll do an order, and we'll list any leftover likes and gripes from these two movies. And that's it. That's the whole thing. It's just a fun little mini round to air out any extra dirty laundry that we have.
Right.
So I'm going to get my timer. So I got it set up for 2 minutes. Let's go. Let's start with Sean as per usual, and then we can jump to, we'll go me next today, and then Dan, and then Adam.
Okay.
Sound good? And then we'll just keep going in that order. And you just say like or gripe and then the thing. Don't worry about giving too much context. All right. In a 3, 2, 1, go.
Like Shatner Romulan ale reaction.
I was going to go
you
with me
know,
next. Yeah,
sorry,
next.
I missed it. You go.
Gripe that the emergency lights have to be manually turned on.
Like a little Joel Edgerton cameo in Star Wars.
Like Shatner's monologue to Carol, what am I feeling? Life that could have been, and that whole pontification about everything he missed. I like that.
Yeah. Gripe rude librarians.
Gripe the line, we'll take him together. You go in slowly on the left, and then damage. I hate that line.
Gripe 20th century exit signs in a Starfleet hallway.
Gripe Khan's henchman's death was just real bad.
He blinks after he dies. Sorry.
Yes, real bad.
like nebula penetration.
Like Obi-Wan's external hyperspeed engine.
Gripe everything Hayden Christensen.
Like Spock's outfit when he was not in uniform, the black silvery robe thing.
Yeah. Gripe putting on gloves before walking into a radioactive chamber.
Like Django's seismic charges. That sequence was cool.
Gripe Anakin showing up to find his mom right before she dies. Just in time to watch her die.
Gripe when Kirk says after the test, I'm not a drama critic.
Like Shmi's death.
What gripe Shmi's dead? So bad.
Gripe the nerve to have a scene where they actually frolic in a field and literally roll and laugh in the grass.
That's it.
Gripe, I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah.
Well done. Sorry, Dan, I missed it. Did you say like that they had the nerve to have them laugh and roll in
No,
a
I
field?
said gripe.
Oh, gripe. Okay, I
I
thought
said
it was like
gripe.
you were like admiring them. I was like,
No, he
Fuck
really
no.
likes the romantic
Absolutely not.
yeah.
I had that as a gripe too. That was my next one. If we kept going around, I can't believe that. Well, very good, very fun. We should just make the whole podcast a 5-minute lightning round. Apparently, so let's rate these. Let's get into these boys a bit more now.
These bad boys.
It's bad. They've been bad.
boys. Let's open up.
And we're gonna rate them. This one might be a tie. We'll see. We might have a tie this week.
I don't know about that.
So let's start. Category 1. Story good. Who? Huh? Who's
Star Trek.
Wrath of
It's
Khan.
Star Trek.
Wrath of Khan.
Fucking Star Trek. Adam?
Yeah, Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Just not even a script in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Looks. Pros and cons in both
cons.
here.
Yeah, pros and cons.
Yeah.
I would say personally,
Yeah.
while I was much impressed by Attack of the Clones based on what I remember from Attack of the Clones, there was a lot more there than I was giving it credit for earlier. I think the things that are glaringly bad from that film drag it down below Star Trek, and so mine goes to Star Trek.
Like the CGI crap and the...
Yeah, it just looks ugly.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there's a lot of really good use of practical effects in Star Trek, and the stuff they do in CGI, some of it's actually really effective, and there's some good CGI effects peppered into an otherwise dumpster fire of a movie in Star Wars. So I'm going to go Star Trek.
I want to debate this a little bit because I think, look, Star Trek it has a very kind of like humble performance visually. I would say overall. It does interesting things.
Yeah.
It's like not trying to overreach. You know what I mean? So when they're going to go to another location, it's like this underground tunnel and it's like pretty simple, you know? They just do like a little hallway, it's fine. There's a thing in the corner that's important. Like there is, I think, I totally agree with you, Sean. I don't want to really argue for Attack of the Clones that much because the green screen stuff is just atrocious. However, as I said, there are things within that. There are visuals and created aliens and whatnot that I think even there's a whole collection of them that are extremely memorable, like that leave a great impression on your mind. That even Miranda watching it, who grew up again at a similar age, seeing these movies as a kid, and even she was like, "Oh my god, that's the spaceship," and like I remember that guy, and I remember like there was like this flood of nostalgia, of remembrance, of like the impression left just from visuals. You know, remembered nothing of the story.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. And if I think about that, I'm still going to remember certain things and designs as I still do from Clones, and I don't think I'm going to get that from Khan. I'm going to remember the silly outfits, and I'm going to remember the like space slug a little bit, but
do you think overall, as a movie, Star Wars looks better than Star Trek? As a fully
subjective.
packaged film.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's that thing where Star Trek has the consistency. It looks more consistently like the movie that it is, whereas Star Wars is like wow, ooh, no, like it's just it doesn't have that, so it doesn't feel like you can't even call it like a visual movie like you could with Star Trek.
There's something about Star Trek. Like I agree with you completely, Jack. Like I think Star Wars has some high highs and some low lows.
Yeah.
And like maybe the lows outnumber the highs. But
yeah.
Star Trek, the director, it was his second film. And he mentioned that he like didn't really know like camera work very well, and like people were said, oh well, it's just like the shots are simple and it focuses on the story, and that's great. He's like, well, I just didn't know how to do anything else. So if you look at it, like there's kind of zoom in on people's faces. There's nothing like cinematography wise, like in terms of the shots, that is really artistic. Like it's very very simple, as you said, with the sets and everything. So I am having a lot of trouble with this category and may lean Star Wars just because those high moments in Star Wars that do have a lot of impact, even if the rest is kind of muck, and that Star Trek is just kind of a vehicle for this story. And visually, there isn't really anything artistic in it, even though I kind of do like the models and like the weight that they have.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, it looks good.
But the overall thing is just like a consistent straight line of stuff that like served the story well, the movie worked, but there aren't moments in it that I'm like, wow, that's really fantastic. The reveal of the cave, when she's like, look at the cave underground, there's a beautiful painted image or whatever someone did.
Yeah.
Like, I think kind of for that same reason, Adam, like, I think I have to give it to Star Wars because it went for more. Like, I think it ultimately achieved more in fractional moments of an absolute dumpster fire of a movie. Where Star Trek, kind of felt like it was like a Star Wars, like a Star Trek TV show. Like it just wasn't, I don't know. It was good, but I liked it. I want to make that very clear. I liked it. But.
So is that your two for Star Wars?
I think I'm going to go Star Wars as well. Yeah.
So that's a tie. I'm going to be right back. I drank way too much tea before we started recording, but you guys debate sound for 30 seconds. I'll be right back. And
don't stop. Bring your mic.
Start the clock.
Yeah. Sound. But also, thank you, Adam. Thank you for supporting me on that. I can't wait to be attacked online as people come for me.
I know. Yeah. Well,
no one's listening.
There are 4 people on Torch. So
really?
Yeah. Hi, Torch.
Wow.
I think that the technology was really new, right? And I feel like part of the whole Clone War battle sequence at the end is just like an ad for like to sell for his like, hey, I can do stuff like this for your movies with my with ILM. Like
Totally.
And I don't know, just because the fact that they did so much with the CGI in that movie, like for its time, like they pushed stuff and like did some stuff that like, you know, like paved the way for the future of like the movie industry, right? Like shooting everything digitally. And like, I think they were technically the third movie to do it, but the first big movie to do it. So despite it sometimes often looking like garbage, I don't know. I think that the effort and what they tried to do and those few moments where it really does succeed and it is visually really powerful sets it. That's kind of why
it's kind of like I want to give credit to the amazing visual artists who were clearly a part of that team and did incredible work. Like they elevated that movie and it's kind of for them, you know.
So sound.
We stalled, so we can jump onto sound. And I'm going to say right away, as I kind of hinted before, I'm going to lean Attack of the Clones.
Absolutely. I think the sound,
that score is
I think
awesome.
the levels with the dialogue are problematic, but I forgive it because the mixing and the editing of the special effects is incredible. And I think like they were all the Star Wars films have been nominated for sound mixing and editing at the Oscars. So like, yeah, it's Star Wars.
Me too.
Yeah, Star Wars.
All right. Thanks for coming out. All right.
Are we keeping you down?
What's that?
Are we?
No, I
keeping
disagree.
you?
I don't have much to add there. I agree. It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have a tie after 3. It's 1-1 and a tie, and one category tied going into acting. Ooh, what's it gonna be?
Look, I'm gonna be honest. This one isn't easy either.
Really?
I know. I kind of want to give it to Shatner. I go, Christopher Lee was good, and the guy I always forget his name. McDermott. What's his name?
Ian McDiarmid. Yeah.
Ian McDiarmid. He's really good. I like him in all the movies. Essentially, I don't know if they're enough.
They're not.
Yeah,
they're maybe not.
I think it has to go to Star Trek for me, just for the fact that in a movie with pacing like that, for it to keep my attention, that is entirely on the actors.
That's fucking true. That is like for Daniel to stay. I was worried, Daniel, when we were about half an hour into Wrath of Khans. I was like, this is not Daniel's week. I know he doesn't like Attack of the Clones. And
but I like
movie,
Star Trek. I love Star Trek.
Okay, all right, good, no, great.
But you're right. But it did almost lose me in the first like 20 minutes.
Yeah. I was worried. I was legit worried about how this was going to go down.
Yeah,
but
and it was losing me in those first moments. I was kind of like, but then it kind of hooks you, and I think that has to do with some performances that are happening. Even stuff that Kirstie Alley is doing is hitting enough. Right notes.
That I gotta disagree with you there.
I didn't really have a problem with her, to be honest.
That's what I mean. She wasn't
awful.
good, but she doesn't blow up the movie. She's better than Bones and these like seasoned actors who are just like flopping around who don't really know how to say lines yet.
But only because she's not allowed to emote.
Yeah,
she's like not allowed to do it.
Yeah, so she's acting that part well.
But she's acting underneath
She's
it a
acting
little
that
bit.
part. I wouldn't say she's acting that part well.
I'm just saying, like, as opposed to all the people in Star Wars who take roles and I don't even know what they do with them. Again, Samuel L. Jackson is also supposed to be stoic, if you want to use that word for both of them, and it comes across as nothing.
Yeah,
nothing.
they have one of the most badass actors in the history of cinema, and they gave him that to do.
Yeah,
sit cross-legged. Yeah. You have Shaft on set.
Yeah, I think that like the two Sith, like Christopher Lee and Ian McDiarmid, were basically the only. And yes, you can comment on, well, the dialogue, like the writing is horrible. And there was one thing actually about acting that I thought was really interesting. For the green screen scenes, they did animatronics to kind of like get it all before they did a finished product. And they would show those to the actors to be like, this is what's happening in the scene. And sometimes they would show them live during a scene where it was like an action sequence. So when they're in the speeder, for example, they're watching a scene on a monitor in front of them, showing them what's happening and reacting to it. It's like,
Oh, that's cool.
and it's like, oh, like, so I thought that was interesting. And I guess it's just like reacting to a bullhorn, someone like yelling, and this is happening.
Yeah.
React. But just the effect of looking and watching a screen, I feel is enough that it would, I don't know, like as an actor, I think it would pull my focus and it would make it hard for me to do anything genuine if I was looking at a monitor.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's got to be Khan. Like I can't,
Yeah.
you know, it's.
And I like Ewan. I think he pulls something that is still a performance out of this movie.
Very excited about his standalone Obi-Wan miniseries. I think it's going to be the only Disney Plus thing I'm not going to spend money on it, but I'm going to watch it for sure.
Yeah, you're gonna borrow.
I'm going to borrow the
Blu-ray.
DVD set. Yeah. Rewatchability. Oh, it is 2-1 to a tie for
So it's
Khan
2.5
going
to
in.
1.5. So still
Yeah.
anyone's game. Still anyone's game here. With rewatchability
Oh boy,
of these two movies.
this is hard, guys.
Is it?
Yep.
Really? I've
man.
heard you guys absolutely crucify the prequels on a number of occasions. How could this be hard?
Do I need to watch the Wrath of Khan again? Probably not. Do I need to watch Attack of the Clones again? No. But will I? Probably. I think my vote's going to Clones. I think it's got to go to Clones because knowing who I am, I'm a Star Wars guy. I like Star Trek. I'm a Star Wars guy. I think I'm watching Clones.
I know who I am.
Sean, the same thing that happened to me is going to happen to you. You're going to watch the Clone Wars, the animated series, and think, wait a minute, were the prequels actually good movies? And then you're going to go back and watch the prequels and realize, no, they weren't. But you'll go back and watch them. So it's tough. I'll let other people go first. But
I'm going Clones. Clones for Sean.
okay.
Dan, you seem like you're sitting on Khan here.
Yeah, I'm sitting right on Khan's face, man. It's a no-brainer for me.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay.
Khan,
I mean, it's
Khan,
a good face to sit on.
Khan, it is. Man, I actually wanted to send his pecs, but he moved his face. Anyways,
Can
I'm going
I
for Khan.
also can I say on his backs? Can I say it was his yelling of Khan was actually a bit under what I thought it was going to be. It was so built up, and it was actually when he did, it was like Khan, and I was like, oh, I kind of wanted it. I actually wanted him to like have a big Shatner moment. Anyway, Adam, I'm curious. Well, I'll give you the last shot here. It's so weird. It's so weird where my emotions are at with these movies because I liked Khan. I liked The Wrath of Khan. I would argue that overall, I'm going to say this. It's a funny thing. I think overall, it's a better movie.
Way better film.
In fact, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
I would, if someone were like, "Oh, is Wrath of Khan a good movie?" I'd be like, "Yeah, it's a good movie."
Correct.
Should I watch it? I'd be like, "Sure."
Yep.
And if someone was like, "Is Attack of the Clones a good movie?" I'd be like, "Definitely not. No, it's a bad movie."
No.
And yet somehow I want to watch it again.
But will you laugh uproariously more often in Attack of the Clones than in Wrath of the Khans?
Yeah.
Correct.
There's like weird, dumb shit, and I like to watch the movie, and then I like
Wrath
to
of the
watch
Khans.
things online of people making fun of that movie, and I go, yeah, what you said, yeah. I just don't get that with Khan. I don't know. It's fine. It's this little soap opera in space for a couple hours.
Yeah.
But like, I don't want to watch it again. So
I wouldn't watch Attack of the Clones again just because it's fucking 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
It's so much bad movie.
Yeah. It's still shorter than like Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back.
But those are good movies. Those
They
are
are.
worth the time.
I'll probably do some Star Wars marathon again one of these days, and I'm not
true.
going to do a Star Trek marathon one of these days.
Oh, you're
Oh,
missing
God,
out,
no.
man.
Adam.
All right, Adam,
It's
what's it gonna
down to
be?
you.
Well, the way I kind of framed it in my head is like, when would I rewatch either of these movies down the road? I agree that Khan is a better movie, that it's a good movie, and that Attack of the Clones is not a good movie. But And fuck, I hate it. I hate it. But like my son James, who's coming up on 1 year old in a few weeks.
He loves Hayden Christensen.
Oh, big fan.
Yeah.
If one day I'm gonna sit down and watch all of the Star Wars movies with him. Whatever. We're gonna share
multiple days,
together,
maybe.
right? Yeah, probably not one day. But
wake him up at 4 a.m.
Get ready.
Work to do.
Hey, buddy. Time to go to a galaxy far, far away.
You're not going to school today, okay? You sit here and you watch.
Are you falling asleep?
Watching in the correct order where it doesn't ruin it, okay?
And then Star Trek.
1, 2, 6, 4, 5, or whatever.
No, it's 4, 5, 1, 2,
1, 2,
3,
3.
6.
Yeah.
Right.
And then just don't watch the sequels. But Star Trek, I'm going to share with him too, but I'm going to share the TV show. Right? Honestly, it's like, are you going to watch? Am I going to show you Wrath of Khan? And it's like, you got to watch Wrath of Khan? Probably not. Mm-hmm. So, which am I more likely to rewatch? Unfortunately, it's Attack of the Clones. Unfortunately,
we have a dead heat, 2-2, and a single tie. Oh, well, we've had a tie before with against.
Wait. Oh yeah, that does take it to a tie, doesn't it?
Yeah, because looks was a dead heat, and then
it was 1.5 to 2.5.
Star Trek won story and acting, and Star Wars won looks and rewatchability.
Oh, dang.
We've had it before. I think it's very fitting. I think it is very fitting that we are torn on this. But absolutely, if you are only going to watch one of these films once at one point in your life, it's the only day you're allowed to watch either Star Wars or Star Trek. Wrath of Khan is the one you want to do. But if you're just a dipshit like me, I'm probably going to watch Attack of the Clones.
That's so funny. Like you say that, and I'm like, yep. It seems so fucked up. I feel like with that in mind, I think maybe for a first time today or first time in this episode, if that's the caveat that you and I agree on, at least Sean, it feels like these two movies went the distance of this fight.
They went 12 rounds.
But if we come down to the decision, if like the decision of the judges is probably going to give it to Wrath of Khan.
Yes. Okay. So there's an asterisk here. It's a tie, but the judges give it to Star Trek.
Like they went the distance,
but it's a point system. It has to be a tie. If it's a draw, it's a draw, man.
Yeah.
And it's a draw.
As much as it pains me to say that, because I think you guys are fucking crazy.
No.
But
I'm like never gonna watch
a draw, man. The numbers don't lie.
The Citizen Kane of the week is.
You don't. I say that. But I was going to say really quickly first is like, if I was like, maybe not, but maybe I would. I think if I was like on my deathbed and that there's movie, I'd be like, put on Attack of the Clones. That shit's terrible. It's so fun.
That's the movie you'd want to die to. Is
no,
Attack
I'm saying
of
if
the
the
Clones?
if the two movies were side by side, I wouldn't really want to watch. Wrath of Khan.
Because Wrath of Khan. I keep wanting to say
Wrath of the Clones.
Wrath of the Clones,
which is a Dan Carlin series. Wrath of Khan is a movie about like middle age and realizing you still have potential and still have something to give. If I'm dying, I don't have anything else left to give. I'm gonna watch bullshit. I'm gonna watch Natalie Portman in a skimpy little white outfit. That's what I'm going to watch to go out for.
It's International Women's Day. Just
put it back.
Aggressive.
Yeah.
One little tidbit I want to drop really quickly that I thought was really funny. The original working title for Return of the Jedi was Wrath of the Jedi, or no, it was Revenge of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Jedi. Right. And the original working title for Wrath of Khan was Revenge of Khan, and they had to change it because they're like, we can't do anything near Star Wars, so they changed it to Wrath of Khan. That's and
then Star Wars changed it to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that means though that this week the Citizen Kane of the week is the fucking tie. It's a draw.
It's a draw. They're both equal.
They're both
But it's really Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
it's really Wrath of Khan.
It's kind of Wrath of Khan, but according to the points, it's a draw. It's a tie.
Yeah,
which it feels so weird.
It's a minority government with Wrath of Khan in the prime minister position.
Yeah.
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 I think if it's that question of Star Trek versus Star Wars to end up in a draw is maybe somewhat kind of appropriate, you know? I think that's
Yeah.
a fun.
Yes.
We have enraged nerddom across the universe.
Yeah, we haven't pleased both sides. We've enraged both
Yeah.
sides for sure.
Fortunately, you're all white men, so
Yeah.
you probably won't get targeted by toxic Star Wars fans.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
it'll be okay.
How dare those two minority characters kiss? That's fucking disgusting.
Meanwhile,
right.
you wore a Star Trek shirt, so you're fucked.
Yeah.
Game over, man.
Yeah.
I will not tell you where you can find me on the internet.
And no pluggables tonight.
Okay, now here's a question for you guys, because you're all big Star Wars fans. If we were to make this an even fight, Star Trek versus Star Wars, the Star Trek movie obviously is going to be Wrath of Khan, because that's like hailed as the
Yes.
classic best Star Trek movie. Unless you go into next gen
Voyage
movies,
Home.
because
Voyage Home is, I would say, a better movie than Wrath of Khan, having seen both now.
is that the one with the whales?
Yeah, the one with the whales.
Okay, I've never seen that one, but I've only
great.
ever heard people talk about Wrath of Khan. Okay, so Voyage Home
Yep.
versus what in the Star Wars canon, in your opinion?
Empire.
Empire, yeah.
Yep.
Or
Jack?
or Jedi. I don't know.
Or Jedi? Okay.
Or Jedi.
And-
Jedi suffers from being product, something that is supposed to shill like children's toys, whereas Empire wasn't quite that, but Jedi's still good.
all right.
I haven't watched Empire in a long time, but yeah, like A New Hope is also really good. I mean, it's
It
a
is.
great origin start, and it's a beginning of a trilogy and a great movie on its own.
Yeah.
I think it's
So
tough again.
What's your
'cause-
question though? Is like if we were to compare like what we consider to be the best movies.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say those two, like the best of the best, pitted against each other. What wins in your opinion? Not as a
mean-
franchise, but as the best movie
two
from
movies?
both. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Empire.
If it's just movie to movie, I
Okay.
would say Star Wars.
Then
either A New
probably
Hope or
probably
Empire.
Solo. I would say.
Definitely Force
I
Awakens.
think the
Oh,
scene
fuck.
where he arrives at the like customs agent and he asks for a name and he says, "Are you alone?" And he says yes, and he's like, "Then your name's Solo." I think that just like it just hits a place deep inside of your psyche, right?
What about the scene where he gets his blaster and you're like, oh, that's where he got his blaster?
I forgot it. So
Someone gives it to him. That's how he got it.
to answer your question, Daniel,
Yeah. Thank you.
movie to movie, definitely Star Wars. But the top,
Franchise to
the top
franchise.
cinematic filmed whatever thing, like is definitely got to be TV show for Star Trek. That's the it's so hard to compare them because Star Trek really is television, whereas Star Wars is the movies. But movie to movie, Star Wars.
And I love, like, even though I'm not even, again, I haven't seen a bunch of it, I love what Star Trek is, like what Roddenberry sought to create and like seeing the diversity in the cast and what that meant. And as Sean, I think you mentioned that like the kiss between Uhura and Kirk and what that did. And like, it's wonderful. And like, as you say, like it wasn't trying, it was meant to be like space diplomacy and like space adventuring.
the best we can be.
You know what I mean? And that was so beautiful. And I love that still, whereas Star Wars is just, you know, it's just World War II in space with space wizards and stuff like that. So that sounds really cool now that I say it. On
That
the
does
line.
sound dope,
I'm
yeah.
saying it like a bad thing. It's
Well,
like World War II in
it is.
space with space lizards.
In A New
Lizards?
Hope, Lucas took lines when they're coming in on the trench attack in A New Hope at the end. He pulled a whole chunk of the script from a movie called The Dam Busters, which is about Allied pilots trying to blow up a German dam
Right.
to prevent them from researching nuclear technology. He pulled a whole chunk of that script and just put it into A New Hope because he was making a World War II spy movie, essentially, but in
Right.
space. So yeah, it is. I just want to plug before we go. There's a brilliant two-parter series by a YouTuber. Movies with Mikey is his title, and it's about the original series is the first part, and the second part is about all the movies they made after the original series. And he's a diehard Trek fan, but he's also very he's brilliant about his attention to detail, and he goes into what Star Trek means as a series really well and really beautifully.
This movie's with Mikey.
Movies with Mikey on YouTube.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of plugging,
Yes.
also like follow us. If you've been watching on Twitch, or if you've been listening to our podcasts, thank you much for your support. Just viewing or listening is super cool of you. Be sure to like and subscribe. Click any button that you see on your screen. Rate, review, leave a comment. I mean, like ideally, good reviews or good ratings are great. That really helps us. But like honestly, anything will help. We're on Instagram at Citizen Kane VS Podcast. We're on Twitter at Citizen Kane VS. We're on YouTube at Citizen Kane VS. We're all over the place, and we stream on Twitch, Twitch, and check us out and come follow along and help us on our season long. I'm probably multi-season, probably for the rest of our lives. Goal of getting Carrie Elways on the show with hashtag Come On Carrie. We need him to come on the show, so we need to make that clear with a simple hashtag Come On Carrie. So if you know the fella, let him
Tell
know.
him to come on.
Yeah, that's all the plugging, right? That's everything.
That's all the plug, I guess.
Adam, do you have anything to plug? Do you have a
any
show
plugs?
you want us to plug?
I don't have anything I want to plug. If you want to get in an internet fight with Sean, he's always ready and willing. But I would just say that, I'm going to try to get Come On Carrie trending. I think that's a great mission statement, and your ongoing mission of this.
Ooh.
But hey, no plugs for me. I don't have any content to plug yet, but
Right on.
if I do, I'll let you guys know.
All right.
Great.
Well, I guess we got some movies for next week.
Yeah. What are they?
I will be completely honest. I totally forgot that I had to come up with something cool. So I feel like I'm panicking. I feel like I'm letting the podcast down, but I have a list, and I think we're going to go with films starring actors who do not have the who do not have the experiences that their main characters are going through. They are not afflicted, or they have not experienced the things that their main characters have gone through. So that's the theme.
Actors?
Okay.
Yeah. So
Like what
so
most
the
actors
classic.
do?
So the classic is Rain Man, the great
Okay.
Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman film. The schlock
Are we
it's going
doing
up
this?
against
This is the one.
is Tiptoes, starring Gary Oldman, Matthew McConaughey, and Kate
you
Beckinsale.
didn't.
I sure as fuck
You
did.
didn't.
What is
I was
Tiptoes?
we should not tell Dan what Tiptoes
We
is.
should not tell Dan what Tiptoes is.
You, I've never seen it. A buddy was talking about it just the other day, saying how we should do it on the podcast. I don't think we should tell you, Dan. I
Nope.
think
Okay.
I want you to find out. Don't even look it up. Just find the stream and watch it. I think
It's
because-
who's in it? Gary Oldman?
Gary
Just so I know what to
Oldman,
look for?
Matthew McConaughey, and Kate Beckinsale, and I think Peter Dinklage is in it.
Oh yay!
Yep. Yeah, it's it's from a time.
so.
It's got to be like early 2000s probably with McConaughey and Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, it's like 2000. I think it's like 2000, 2001.
Oh,
yeah.
the fucking the Goldilocks time for TV and film. Just that fucking sweet spot where everything goes.
and versus Rain Man.
Versus Rain Man, which
Great.
they are the what the main characters are going through is completely separate, but it absolutely is. The leads are not do not have any experience with what they are supposed to be portraying.
Okay, that makes more sense because when you were first breaking that down, I was like, don't most
Yeah, you were
actors
like
just
acting,
imagine
yeah.
circumstances?
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, okay.
Isn't that what it is?
This is pretty specific to these films.
Right,
You'll
right.
understand.
Rain Man settled it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, great. I look forward to that. God, I can't wait to watch Tiptoes, man. Awesome.
I can't wait to talk about Rain Man on this show.
I can't wait to say very little about Rain Man.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is that it's
Yeah.
going to be an
We're
interesting
going to
conversation
critique
with
the
you guys
hell
about
out of
Rain
the
Man.
film theory of Rain Man. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great. I think that's probably that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening.
And
Citizen Kane, do it.
Con!
God.
God!
God.